Listen to me carefully. There is a secret path, one that very few dare to walk. A path where pleasure is not a goal, but a tool, where desire is not chased, but transformed. I'm talking about the chosen ones, men and women who made a conscious decision to live without sex, not because of guilt, not because of fear, not because of religion, but because deep inside, they heard a calling, a silent, powerful voice that whispered, "There is more, much more." You see, the world is obsessed with satisfying every urge. But what happens when someone decides to take that energy and redirect it? What happens to the body and the mind of a person who chooses to live without sex? This isn't about monks, priests, or nuns. This is about ordinary people who discovered an extraordinary truth. When you stop giving your energy to the outside world, something awakens inside. A force that the majority will never feel, a clarity that cuts through noise, a power that isn't loud but unshakable. Today, you're going to discover what happens when sexual energy stops being spent and starts being stored, how the body changes, how the mind rewires, how the spirit rises. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the chosen ones are not deprived. They are amplified. But listen closely. This journey is not for everyone. It's for those who feel that silent pull within. If you're here, it's not by accident. So before we go deeper, make a choice. Tap the like button to amplify this message. Subscribe if you haven't yet. This path is long and you're going to need guidance. And comment 99 below. Why 99? Because it's a spiritual code, a symbol that you are mastering what 99% of people are still controlled by. Now, are you ready to discover what really happens when a chosen one lives without sex? Let's go. In the beginning, it feels like war. The moment a chosen one decides to live without sex, the mind doesn't go quiet. It goes louder. Memories flood back. Fantasies sharpen. The smallest triggers ignite wild fires in the imagination. It's as if the mind, threatened by the loss of its favorite reward, fights back with everything it has. Desires become demanding, insistent, seductive. Whispers turn into screams. The mind tempts you, provokes you, pulls you back into the cycle it knows so well. But this is where the chosen ones are separated from the masses. Because while most people surrender to the noise, the chosen ones choose to observe it. They don't react. They don't run. They watch. At first it's uncomfortable. It's chaotic. But slowly, so slowly, it begins. The noise starts to fade. The chaos starts to organize itself. It's like closing down dozens of tabs in your mental browser. Suddenly, everything becomes lighter, faster, clearer. The mind, no longer consumed with chasing the next hit of pleasure, begins to operate on a different frequency, a frequency of stillness. You see, desire had been leading the mind for so long that it became invisible. It was the background program, always running, always consuming energy. But when that program is finally shut down, the mind wakes up. Thoughts that once felt urgent now seem irrelevant. Impulses that controlled you for years lose their power. The chosen ones start noticing details others miss. Conversations become deeper. Books feel richer. Even silence becomes a symphony. But here's the truth they won't tell you. This clarity doesn't arrive as a gift. It comes as a consequence of facing every hidden wound. Because when the mind stops being distracted by external pleasures, it turns inward. It starts to confront everything you've been avoiding. Old insecurities, buried fears, unresolved emotions. And this is where most people quit. Because it's painful to face yourself without filters. It's uncomfortable to realize how much of your life was driven by unconscious cravings. But the chosen ones, they persist. Every confrontation becomes a lesson. Every inner wound becomes a source of strength. Over time, the mind builds a fortress, a place where no external temptation can breach. Because when you've faced your own shadows and survived, the world outside loses its power over you. And there's something else. something the chosen ones discover in this process that no one expects. The mind, once it's no longer enslaved by desire, becomes a creator. Ideas flow effortlessly. Focus becomes razor-sharp. The chosen ones start building projects, visions, and missions with a level of concentration that feels almost superhuman. It's not because they're gifted. It's because they reclaimed every drop of energy that was once lost in mindless pursuit. And here's where the paradox reveals itself. By giving up the chase for fleeting pleasure, they unlock a deeper, more profound satisfaction. But we're not done, because the mental reset is only the beginning. The next transformation is even more powerful. It's the moment when the body itself begins to change. And what happens in the body of a chosen one who lives without sex is something science is only starting to understand. But ancient wisdom has known for centuries. Don't blink. The next part will change how you see your own body forever. Now we enter the realm where most people never dare to look. What happens to the body of a chosen one who lives without sex? Some say the body deteriorates, that abstaining from sex weakens your vitality, makes you fragile, even sick. Others whisper the opposite, that celibacy unlocks a hidden reservoir of energy, a fountain of youth, untouched by time. But the truth is far more fascinating, and far more dangerous to those who want to keep humanity asleep. When a chosen one withdraws from sexual activity, the body doesn't shut down, it doesn't malfunction, it adapts. At first there's resistance. The hormonal system, conditioned by years, decades of automatic gratification, tries to reignite the familiar cycle. Testosterone spikes. Desire becomes a physical ache. The body, confused by the sudden lack of release, sends signals, demands attention, urges you to reset the system. But the chosen ones, they don't obey. They endure. And this is when something extraordinary begins. The body, realizing that its old pathways are no longer being followed, recalibrates. Energy that was once funneled outward through acts of physical pleasure now turns inward. But it doesn't vanish. It accumulates. In Taoist teachings, this phenomenon is known as Ding, the preservation of essential life force. It's not philosophy, it's physics. Energy, when not discharged, doesn't disappear. It transforms. It evolves. The chosen ones start to notice subtle changes first. Breathing becomes deeper, more deliberate. Muscles hold tension differently, less reactive, more grounded. The spine straightens, as if the body is being rewired for something higher. Even the eyes, they change. The dullness fades. A new intensity appears, a sharpness that unsettles people, even if they don't understand why. This is because the body is no longer dissipating its life force in fragments. It's storing it, compacting it, turning it into a magnetic field that radiates without words. But make no mistake, this process is not automatic. It's not passive. The chosen ones know that if this energy is not consciously directed, it can implode, turning into frustration, tension, even illness. That's why they learn to channel it. Through physical training that goes beyond fitness, movement becomes a ritual. Through breath work that circulates the stored energy like an electric current. Through creative expression, art, writing, music, where the suppressed impulse finds a higher outlet. And as the days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, a transformation occurs. Fatigue fades. The body recovers faster. There's a tangible increase in physical strength, but not the explosive, jittery strength that fades quickly. This is a dense, sustained power, a power that holds. The immune system recalibrates. The skin gains a subtle glow. Digestion improves. Even the heartbeat finds a calmer rhythm, no longer hijacked by hormonal swings. Modern science is only beginning to scratch the surface of this phenomenon. Studies on dopamine regulation, hormonal balance, and energy conservation hint at what ancient traditions have known for millennia. When sexual energy is not wasted, it becomes a fuel for regeneration. But there's a paradox here. Because society teaches you that fulfillment comes from constant release, from consumption, from indulgence. The chosen ones know the opposite. That true power comes not from what you expend, but from what you preserve. This isn't about repression, it's about alchemy. The body of a chosen one becomes a crucible, where raw, untamed desire is not destroyed, but transmuted into vitality, into endurance, into silent charisma. They don't need to speak loudly. Their presence speaks for them. It's not seduction, it's magnetism, a gravitational pull that comes from someone who holds their power within. And here lies the secret that the world doesn't want you to know. The less you give your energy away mindlessly, the more the world feels your presence. But this transformation of the body is still just the surface. Because when sexual energy is no longer spent outwardly, when the body becomes a generator of silent power, the next transformation is not visible to the eye. It happens in the spirit. And what awakens in the spirit of a chosen one who lives without sex is a force that rewrites the very fabric of reality. Brace yourself. What comes next is the true reason why the chosen ones are feared and revered. There is a hidden doorway inside every human being, a doorway that only opens when the most primal force within us is not denied, but transmuted. Desire. The same force that builds empires and destroys lives. The fire that drives creation, but also consumes those who don't know how to handle its heat. But here's the secret the chosen ones have discovered. Desire is not meant to be extinguished. It's meant to rise. Every ancient spiritual tradition points to this truth. The yogis speak of Kundalini, a dormant energy coiled at the base of the spine, waiting to ascend. The Taoist masters call it inner alchemy, the transformation of raw sexual essence into pure life force. Christian mystics refer to it as divine union, where the soul transcends the flesh through sacred devotion. Different names, same principle. When desire is no longer expelled outward in the pursuit of momentary pleasure, it begins a journey inward, an ascent. At first, this ascent is subtle. The chosen ones may experience random surges of creativity, bursts of inspiration that seem to come from nowhere. Ideas flow effortlessly. Solutions to problems appear in dreams. Colors seem brighter. Music resonates deeper. But as the process deepens, something more profound awakens. Intuition sharpens. The chosen ones begin to sense things before they happen. They feel energies in a room. They pick up emotions without a word being spoken. And then, there are moments of pure, unfiltered ecstasy. Not the fleeting ecstasy of physical climax, but a spiritual rapture that floods the entire being. It can happen in meditation. It can happen while walking in nature. It can even strike in silence when least expected. A wave of light washes through the body. Goosebumps rise. Tears fall, not from sadness, but from a joy so deep it has no words. This is the transmutation of desire. The sacred alchemy where the fire of instinct becomes the light of consciousness. But don't misunderstand. This isn't a path of suppression. Suppression creates pressure, and pressure explodes. The chosen ones don't fight their desires. They face them, they honor them, and then they redirect them, with precision, with love, with discipline. It's like learning to harness the current of a wild river. Instead of letting it flood and destroy, they build channels. They guide the flow, and that flow becomes a source of inner power. Over time, the chosen ones realize that the pleasure they once sought outside was merely a shadow of what could be felt within. Because when desire ascends, pleasure is no longer dependent on touch, or validation, or physical release. Pleasure becomes presence, a deep, magnetic connection to life itself. They feel it in their breath, in their heartbeat, in the simple act of being alive. And this state of inner fulfillment creates a paradox. The chosen ones no longer crave external approval, yet their presence becomes irresistible. People are drawn to them without understanding why. because when someone carries light that comes from within, the world feels it. But this journey is not without its trials. Transmutation requires constant awareness. It demands daily choices. Every desire that arises is an opportunity to either fall back into old patterns or rise into higher consciousness. And the chosen ones, they rise. They transform every urge into art, every impulse into service, every distraction into focus. This is the path of self-mastery, a path where pleasure is not an addiction, but a sacred portal, a gateway to dimensions of awareness that cannot be reached through the senses alone. And as their spiritual body strengthens, they begin to experience something even more profound. They become co-creators of their reality. Manifestation accelerates. What they focus on materializes. Not through force, but through alignment. Because when desire is no longer scattered, it becomes a laser, a concentrated beam of will that reshapes the fabric of existence. And yet, the world will never understand this power. It will mock it. It will fear it. It will try to explain it away. But the chosen ones don't need validation. Their transformation is internal, silent, unstoppable. But we're still not done. Because while the spiritual transmutation unlocks power, there is a deeper battlefield where the chosen ones must prove their mastery, the realm of emotions. Because no matter how much light you generate, your shadows will always seek your attention. And in the next part, you will see how the chosen ones turn their deepest emotional wounds into their greatest weapons of power. Stay with me. The next revelation will expose what truly separates the weak from the unstoppable. There's a battlefield most people never see. It's not fought in the body. It's not fought in the mind. It's fought in the quiet chambers of the heart. For the chosen ones who walk the path of celibacy, this is where the real war takes place. Because living without sex is not just a physical decision, it's an emotional crucible. In the absence of physical intimacy, something unexpected happens. Emotions that were once numbed or silenced by pleasure start to surface. Loneliness doesn't knock. It kicks the door down. Feelings of inadequacy begin to whisper louder. Are you enough? Without anyone desiring you? Grief emerges, not always for a lost lover, but for parts of the self that were never truly seen. But here's where the chosen ones are different. They don't run. They sit with it. They breathe through it. They face every uncomfortable emotion with a brutal yet loving honesty. Because they understand a truth most will never grasp. Pleasure can become a mask, a distraction, an escape route from the wounds that ache beneath the surface. But when you remove that mask, when there's nowhere left to hide, you're forced to meet yourself in your rawest form. And it's terrifying. But it's also liberating. The chosen ones know that every wave of anxiety is an invitation to refocus. Every pang of loneliness is a call to deepen their inner dialogue. Every moment of longing becomes a spark, fuel to create, to express, to build. This process isn't glamorous. It's messy. There are days when the heart feels heavy, when tears fall without explanation. But every tear washes away layers of illusion. Over time, something extraordinary begins to happen. Emotional intelligence sharpens. The chosen ones learn to name their feelings, not as enemies, but as messages. They start to recognize patterns. Why do I feel unworthy in moments of silence? Why does this longing arise after a victory? Questions that most avoid become doorways to self-mastery. And this isn't about suppressing emotions. Suppression creates pressure. The chosen ones transmute. They alchemize their emotions. Anxiety becomes a laser focus, pushing them to refine their craft. Loneliness turns into intimate conversations with their own soul. Longing is transformed into art, music, poetry, or acts of service that ripple far beyond themselves. They understand that emotions are not obstacles to avoid. They are energy, and energy must move. But the movement is chosen. It's deliberate. It's sacred. This emotional alchemy creates something rare in today's world: resilience. Not the fake resilience that wears a smile to hide the pain, but a deep, unshakable peace. A heart that no longer begs for external validation to feel alive. Imagine this: walking into a room and not needing anyone's approval, feeling seen, even when you're invisible, because you've already seen yourself in your darkest, most vulnerable moments, and you didn't flinch. That's the power of emotional mastery. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've turned your deepest wounds into your sharpest weapons of growth. But the world will test this constantly. People will question your choices. Society will tempt you to return to the cycle of instant gratification. But the chosen ones, they don't react. They respond. With presence, with clarity, with a power that doesn't shout, but commands. And yet, there's a deeper challenge still waiting. Because even after mastering their emotions, even after turning loneliness into self-awareness and anxiety into laser focus, the chosen ones must face the greatest paradox of all. How do you stay connected to a world that doesn't understand your path? How do you build authentic relationships when most connections are built on the very thing you've chosen to transcend? The next part of this journey will reveal the answer. It's the moment where the chosen ones redefine intimacy itself and discover a connection that goes far beyond flesh, beyond words, into a realm where only the few ever reach. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about relationships. There's a silent war that begins the moment a chosen one decides to live without sex. But this battle isn't fought in private. It echoes through every relationship. Friends raise eyebrows, family members ask uncomfortable questions, romantic partners drift away. Not out of malice, but because they simply can't comprehend a life where physical intimacy is not the foundation. To the outside world, celibacy looks like a prison, loneliness, isolation, deprivation. But for the chosen ones, this so-called isolation is a sacred filter. A filter that removes every shallow connection, every relationship built on fleeting pleasure, every bond that was never truly real. And in that silence, something extraordinary is born. The chosen ones begin to realize that most human interactions are blurred by an invisible haze. A haze of unspoken desires, hidden expectations, subtle manipulations. When you remove the pursuit of physical gratification, the haze clears. Suddenly, conversations shift. They slow down, they deepen. Words carry more weight. Pauses become meaningful. Presence becomes palpable. The chosen ones start to crave a different kind of intimacy. Not skin to skin, but soul to soul. They learn to listen, not just to words, but to the energy behind them. They sense when someone is speaking from their heart and when they're hiding behind masks. They feel lies before they're spoken, but they also feel truths, even when they're wrapped in silence. And this changes everything. While others seek relationships to fill a void, the chosen ones approach them from fullness. They no longer need someone to complete them. They seek those who amplify them, souls who resonate at the same frequency. Individuals who are not afraid of the silence because they've faced their own. It's in this sacred space that true connection happens, a connection where the heart speaks louder than the body, where a glance can convey more than 1,000 words, where holding space for someone becomes more intimate than holding their hand. This paradox becomes clear. By stepping away from superficial intimacy, the chosen ones unlock the potential for deeper, more authentic bonds. But this path is not without its challenges. There are moments of crushing solitude, moments when the world feels distant, and the temptation to return to normalcy becomes overwhelming. But the chosen ones endure, because they understand that solitude is not the enemy. It's the crucible where their inner light is forged. And then something miraculous happens. Over time, their vibration shifts. Their energy becomes unmistakable. And without effort, without seeking, they begin to attract others who walk a similar path. Kindred spirits. Souls who have also outgrown the noise, who seek conversations that heal, relationships that elevate, connections that don't drain but replenish. In this space, intimacy is redefined. It's no longer about possession, it's about presence. It's not about touching bodies, it's about touching truths. For the chosen ones, a simple moment of shared silence can be more intimate than 1,000 romantic gestures. Because in that silence, there's no agenda, no performance, only being. But here's the twist. As they walk this path, the chosen ones develop a magnetic field that's impossible to ignore. People are drawn to them, without knowing why. Not because of seduction, but because of authenticity. In a world addicted to fake connections, the realness of a chosen one becomes a rare and irresistible force. And yet, even as their circle refines, even as their relationships deepen, the chosen ones know that their ultimate connection must always be within. Because no matter how profound the bond with another person, the true essence of this path is learning to walk powerfully, even when no one is watching. But the journey doesn't end here. Because there is a final transformation, a moment when all the inner work, the mental clarity, the physical alchemy, the spiritual ascension, and emotional mastery culminate into something far greater. A legacy, a silent revolution that changes not only their own lives, but leaves a permanent imprint on the world around them. And in the final part of this journey, you will understand why the chosen ones, even in their quietest moments, become the loudest echoes of transformation. The final revelation is coming, and it will change the way you see yourself forever. Listen to me. You've been told that living without sex is emptiness, that abstaining from pleasure is weakness, that celibacy is a life of cold solitude. But they lied to you. The chosen ones know the truth, a truth that terrifies the world because it cannot be controlled. Living without sex is not about deprivation, it's about redirection. It's about reclaiming a force so powerful, so divine, that most people spend it without even knowing what they're giving away. Desire is not your enemy, it's your weapon, but only if you learn how to wield it. The chosen ones are not superior. They are different. They have chosen to walk a path where the body becomes a temple, the mind a sanctuary, and the spirit a blazing beacon of light. They don't suppress their desires. They rise above them. They become greater than them. And in a world drowning in noise and distractions, their silence becomes a revolution. A silent revolution of self-mastery. Every step they take is an act of rebellion. Every moment of presence is a strike against a system that thrives on your disconnection. Their legacy is not written in fame, but in energy. Energy that cannot be bought, cannot be faked, cannot be silenced. And now, the question is no longer about them. It's about you. Could you be one of them? Could you dare to master the very force that masters most? Could you turn your desires into fuel, your solitude into strength, your silence into a weapon of transformation? If this message has awakened something in you, don't let it fade. Declare it. Affirm it. Type, "I hold the power" in the comments right now. Because those who speak their truth activate their truth. This isn't just a video. This is a call to those who are ready to rise. So, hit the like button, not for numbers, but to amplify this frequency. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because this path is just beginning. And remember, this revolution doesn't start outside. It starts with you, inside you, right now. And once you ignite it, nothing and no one will be able to extinguish your light. You are not here by accident. You are here because you were chosen to hear this, chosen to remember your power, chosen to reclaim what is already yours. So, breathe in. Feel that fire rising, because your revolution starts within, and this time, the world will feel it.